Okay, hi everyone. I'm Alyssa, and I'm super excited to be here with all of you today. This is supposed to be a very informal presentation, and if you guys have any questions, please stop me and ask because I want to be as interactive as possible. This presentation is designed to be on stage, and since we are not on stage, I'd rather that if you have questions right away, just ask me. So let's get started. Okay, what if time travel was possible and we could go back in time to this very moment and tell this little girl here that one day she'll get to work on some of Hollywood's biggest films? And what if we told her that if she worked hard enough, she might even get a chance to hold a real Oscar? Seems impossible, right? I thought so too. So how does a shy, introverted immigrant girl from Malaysia, that's where I'm from, someone who started with nothing but a love of storytelling, end up working on award-winning films like The Last of Us, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and Mission Impossible? That's the story I want to share with all of you here today, not just a career path, but the moments, the mistakes, the pivots, the unexpected detours that led to a career in film and animation. Not because I'm special, because I believe you might be that kid too. So you might be wondering, how did I do it? Well, it wasn't magic, that's for sure. It was messy, full of risk, and took a whole lot of hard work, determination, courage, and a few leaps of faith, especially when I couldn't even see what was ahead of me. Let me take you on a little journey to back in time, to the very, very beginning. I was born in a small town called Kota Kinabalu in Malaysia to a middle-class family. My father was an engineer who could fix almost anything, and my mother, she was an incredibly talented artist who gave up her career to become a full-time stay-at-home mother to raise us, the kids. I was incredibly shy and introvert, while the neighborhood kids were out on bikes and at the playground. You usually find me at home reading, painting, or glued to the television watching cartoons. That was me. But I was also a very curious kid, like deeply curious. I didn't just want to watch cartoons. I wanted to know how they were made. I wanted to understand how everything worked. Growing up in an Asian household, my siblings and I were taught to work hard, and success would eventually come later. Education was everything. Stability was everything. And above all, family was everything. I grew up surrounded by grandparents, aunties, uncles, cousins, and from a very young age, I understood that we don't get far alone. We always walk together through life together, right? So in the late 80s, something drastic happened, and that basically was kind of unpredictable. And my parents made the bold decision to leave behind our close-knit family in Malaysia and everything we knew, and move to Middle Earth, aka New Zealand. We gave up, everything, basically our community, our comfort, and most of all, my parents gave up their jobs, their comfort, so that we could have better opportunity and better education, and in their words, a better chance at success. I didn't understand the weight of that decision back then, but I do kind of now. That kind of sacrifice just you carry with you. Life in New Zealand is very different. It's quieter, it's colder, it's a world away from everything I knew. But I found ways to adapt, I was still the same nerdy, curious kid. I loved Sherlock Holmes. I loved Isaac Asimov's Foundation's Edge. And of course, I loved Lord of the Rings, which hit a little bit different when you actually live in New Zealand at the time. And when I wasn't reading, I was watching The Jetsons. Who remembers The Jetsons? It's a very old cartoon dreaming about a world filled with robots, floating cities, and futuristic gadgets. Yeah, Lord of the Rings? Yes. Yeah, looking back now, I guess I've always been drawn to imagine worlds, and maybe that's why that's what eventually led me to visual storytelling and to visual effects. I didn't know at that point yet, but back then, I was still a kid trying to figure it out how to fit in, right? How not to be shy, and maybe how to make something of myself so that my parents' sacrifice wouldn't be in vain. So what does a shy, nerdy kid, do in a brand new country, especially when she could barely speak English at that point? She escapes into movies. Now, every superhero or supervillain has their origin stories, right? Well, I'm not a superhero, maybe a supervillain in the making, but my origin story did not start in a distant, galaxy far, far away or a secret lab. It started in the most exciting places I knew, our living room. My dad is a film enthusiast. That was my childhood, really. But these weren't just the movies, right? The posters that you see here, they were my English classes too. While other kids in my school had flashcards and spelling bees, I had Mary Poppins teaching me how to speak English. And then came The Wizard of Oz, a world where everything was possible. Anything was possible. That was it. That was the moment I knew. That I knew I wanted to be a part of this magic. But looking back now, it's clear my love for film and animation started pretty early, and I have one person to thank for: my father, my first and forever superhero. Right. As I grew older, so did my taste in films. I became obsessed with ancient civilizations, ancient worlds, and the stories like Ben-Hur that showed massive civilizations and chariots and cities of lost time. And there were these adventure films as well, like The Raiders of the Lost Ark or Treasure Island. I didn't just watch them, right? I daydreamed about the environments for days afterwards and replaying the scenes in my head like a lunatic. It wasn't just about the characters anymore. It was all about the world building, the landscapes, the environment, and the way each scenes felt like a place you could walk in real life. Looking back, I think that's where my love for world building truly began. As I moved into my teenage years, my love for film didn't just grow, they evolved. Movies like Ghostbusters, Sinbad, and The Close Encounters of the Third Kind opened my eyes to something bigger: visual effects, the art of making the impossible look possible. I didn't know what map painting was yet, or compositing, or 3D pipelines, but I remember watching those scenes and thinking, how do they do that? How did they make the ghosts fly and glow like that, or build those ancient temples? That curiosity stayed with me. And I think that's when I didn't just want to watch movies anymore. I wanted to create them, right? And then came the sci-fi era, the science fiction. It was a huge step up from the days of the Jetsons. As a kid, we weren't just imagining gadgets anymore. We were imagining entire universes. Buck Rogers, Star Wars, Star Trek. These films didn't just entertain me. They kicked off a full-blown obsession with space, visual effects, storytelling, and filmmaking. I would sit there and fantasize what it would feel like to walk through the deserts of Tatooine, or jump on warp speed on the Enterprise, or be on board the Millennium Falcon in a galaxy far, far away, right? Those films didn't just change how I saw stories, they changed how I saw possibilities, what humans could imagine and what artists could build together, what I might one day be part of. But at that time, I didn't even know that working in the film industry was a reality, was possible, especially in a small town like Christchurch, where there are more sheep than human beings. I didn't know any artists at all. I didn't know any filmmakers, no one in visual effects. So the dream stayed a dream. Then came my senior years of high school, the year where everything suddenly got very serious. We were all sat down with the school career counselor, the person who supposedly helped us figure out our future. I walked into her office, she looked at my grade and said, well, you're quite good in calculus and statistics, and physics and chemistry, and computer studies, and surprisingly, you're pretty good at art too. So she suggested maybe you should do fine arts or computer science. That was it. 2 boxes, 2 choices. A film in Korea, that was just a pipe dream. We were in Christchurch and Hollywood felt like millions and millions of miles away, not just physically, but also mentally. And film didn't even feel like a real job for me at the time. It felt like someone's just making it out of passion, out of hobby, right? It's not a real job. Maybe it's for the people in LA, not for the people like me. And like so many kids, I nodded politely and quietly buried that dream, and for the time being anyway. So there I was, I ended up at the University of Canterbury in Christchurch, and I did what any confused, curious, hopeful students might do. I couldn't choose between art or science, so I didn't. I did both. I majored in both computer engineering and fine arts and completed two completely different worlds. One filled with codes, logics, and circuit boards, and the other one filled with paint, composition, and messy emotions, right? And somehow both sides of me were happy. I loved solving problems, and I still love creating visuals. And I still quietly loved films. By the time I graduated 5 years later with 2 degrees and still the dream of working in film, it felt like a fantasy still, right? Christchurch was still a world away from Hollywood. And the idea of actually making films, it felt more impossible right now. So I graduated. What now, right? I still have no clue how to get into the industry. And there were no visual effects studios around me except Weta Digital in Wellington and no guidebook for how to break into the industry. Maybe some of you are feeling that right now too. Ask the same question, why now? What now? Why now, right? It's a scary place to be, I can tell you that. What most people think a path of career success should look like this, right? Straightforward, smooth. You pick a path, work hard, and boom, you're there, A to B, right? But in my case, it looked more like this. A few hills, a few fires, a giant emotional puddle, and a couple of breakdowns along the way. And I'm not even joking. That's actually very true. And honestly, that's still what it looked like right now for me. The truth is, a career path, especially in the creative fields, are rarely a straight line. They are unpredictable, they are exhausting, sometimes ridiculous, and often deeply worth it. So if you're feeling lost right now or your path doesn't look normal, you're probably doing it right, right? So after all that, I'm just going to give you a brief history of what I've done before I really get into film. So what I did, a lot of people do when the dream feels far away, right? We try to be practical. I moved to Auckland, the biggest city in New Zealand, and landed the job as a programmer for a small game company. It was a decent job. I was grateful for it, but 6 months in, I felt something wasn't right. It felt like I was watching my life unfold, but it wasn't really mine. Like I'm just in a body of someone else. My parents were very supportive. They always have been, but I knew they were worried that I wasn't settling down or finding a stable career path. So I quit my programming job. Like many others before me, I ended up in hospitality, making coffees, front of house, just to pay rent, trying to figure it out. And then something happened. One of my coworker from the cafe was taking some night classes, and she was learning how to do prosthetic special effects makeup, and I was really, really curious. So I followed her one day to the school, and she showed me around, and they were really making like scars and painting wounds and then making prosthetic for an alien eyeball or something rather. I was very interested, so I enrolled part-time just to see where that would take me, and that kind of changed everything a little bit. So after I finished the special effects and prosthetic makeup course, I was picked up by a small agency that placed artists on television, film, and stage productions. For a while, I was working for stage productions, which is very far from film and animation. But then came my first big-ish break in 2004. That was a long time ago. Like I know that some of you might be watching this as a kid. That makes me feel old, but it's okay. This is my history, my story. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe came to New Zealand for principal photography. And I got to work on it for 8 months, right? Under Howard Berger and the legendary Sir Richard Taylor at Weather Workshop. That was kind of the job that changes you. Long days surrounded by talented people. Like seriously, like some of the makeup artists, they apply so quickly. I'm still learning, at that point. And the behind the scenes glimpse of what making a film actually look like, all the chaos, right? All the people around. One day during a quiet moment on set, I got chatting with Richard Taylor. And I told him that I would love to make film full time, but I have no idea how to eventually get in there. He asked me what a very simple question. He asked me, what do I love about films? I just said the fantasy worlds, the environments, the characters you get to create, the environments you get to build, the cliche making the impossible possible. He smiled and then he advised me, don't give up that dream, because it took me a long time to get there too. And you have to try many different things to get there. And that was it. That was all I needed to hear from a veteran like Richard Taylor. So after Narnia wrap, Peter McCulley of Albedo VFX studio in Auckland took me on. I worked with him as a production illustrator and designer for local television and film productions. It felt like I was finally on the path, kind of, but in New Zealand, it's expensive and freelancing didn't really pay the bills. So I couldn't afford rent or groceries some weeks. Really, it was kind of like the low moment of my life. So I needed a plan B. And my plan B was to go back to school, because advertising was booming at the time, especially in Auckland. They were hiring accounts manager, all sort of people for advertising companies. So I pivoted. I went to Auckland University of Technology and studied advertising management. Because sometimes keeping the dream alive means doing what it takes to survive. And as you've seen the road, it's never a straight line, right? But some people do get the straight line and they are lucky. I really do admire them. But for me, it's just a lot of trial and error. So after finishing the diploma in advertising, I landed the job at Saatchi & Saatchi International as an accounts manager, associate accounts manager. It was a stable, corporate, predictable, and to be honest, for a while, it was enough. But deep down, I still wanted to get into film. That dream hadn't gone away. I wasn't going to give up, not yet. So one day, so by day, I was working as a advertising accounts associate, and by nights and sometimes weekends, I work as a freelance illustrator and matte painter. Any jobs I could find, no matter how small, how big, I just took it. As the years went by, though, some things started to shift. I was doing a job for the paycheck, not for the joy, not for the purpose, and definitely not what I wanted to do. The paycheck was good, right? Something was missing, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. So I sat down with my mentor, the one who brought me into the world of production, illustration, and the man who gave me my first job in the industry. And I told him, I still really want to work in film, but I don't know how to break in. I don't have the right skill. All I knew was Photoshop and illustration. That's all I knew. And he said to me, there's a school here in Auckland, and they're teaching visual effects and animation. And if you want this, don't give up, because you need the tools, to get ahead. And that stuck with me for a while. We'll go back to this later. You need the tools to get ahead. We'll come back to that later. Just remember this sentence. So I took a sabbatical from Saatchi & Saatchi. I went back to school again, full-time, and I studied visual effects and animation at Media Design School. So after a year of full-time study, I graduated from Media Design School, and I did something terrifying. I went back to Saatchi & Saatchi and quit my six-figure corporate job to pursue a full-time career in film that was unstable. So I did this, much to my parents' horror. They were worried about stability, about the future, and to be honest, I was too. There were nights I would lay awake thinking, did I just throw everything away? I was climbing the corporate ladder. I had security. I had a six-figure job. What did I just make the biggest mistake of my life? Trust me, that was so real. Even talking about it right now gave me goosebumps. But something deep inside me, I knew I had to give it a go. I need to try. And I continued working as a freelance production illustrator and matte painter at Albedo VFX. It wasn't glamorous, but it was real. I was finally in it. I continued working, for a few months until my mentor called me one day. And he said, there's a producer from LA in town. They're working on something big, and they're looking for someone to help out. A few days later, I walked into a meeting or an interview and spoke to the producer. And by the end of the week, I was hired. I was hired to join the art department for Stars Entertainment, the Spartacus series, The Vengeance, and War of the Dam. And for the first time, I wasn't just freelancing or assisting anymore. I was actually inside the system, the payroll system. I was part of a real production team doing the work I used to dream about as a kid on the couch watching Ben-Hur, right? As you can see, from the time I graduated from university to the time I got my first big break, it took 9 long years. 9 years of trying, 9 years of pivoting, 9 years of starting over, and of wondering if I would ever make it. But the good things do take time and big things do start small. And sometimes you have to try a few different careers before you finally find the one that makes you feel alive. So if you're feeling behind or unsure or like you're running out of time, you are not. You're on the right track. Trust me on that. So as I mentioned, I took the big leap. That happened, and I joined Stars Entertainment on the Spartacus series that was filmed in Auckland. And these 2 seasons were my first major shows. They were my breakthrough shows. For the first time, I wasn't freelancing on the side. I was working on this full time, something that I've dreamt of since I was a kid. It was intense, it was challenging, it was exciting, but most of all, it felt like I finally found my place. I finally felt belong, right? So the job itself wasn't glamorous to begin with, as you would have imagined. Part of my role in Spartacus also includes something that might seem small at first, right? But ended up to be incredibly important in the future. I learned how to shoot on-set photography. I learned how to sort reference photos. I learned how to clean data. I learned how to organize everything so that the art department could use it for concept work and development later on. It wasn't flashy, but it taught me the discipline of organization, attention to details, and how production actually works behind the scenes. These were the quiet skills that kind of nobody talks about, but they are the ones that helped me enormously later on as I move into the industry and eventually art direction and leadership roles, right? And it's not limited to outdoor shoots as well. To anyone starting out, never underestimate the value of doing the unsexy work well. Remember that. People remember, it builds trust, and trust opens a lot of doors. So the data cleanup and organization is important when it comes down to working in the department, and because they were used by various artists to develop concepts and illustrations and development and whatnot, right? For example, all these set photos ended up being used to create shots like this, right? Or like this, or like this, right? And the job perk, I got to mingle with some very good-looking people from time to time. It's just like one of those perks. And yes, Spartacus although Spartacus wasn't my first time on set, I've worked on with special effects makeup before on Narnia many years earlier, but this moment felt very different for me. This time, I was here as an artist, and part of the art department helped design the world behind the story. I still remember how surreal it felt at that moment, standing there surrounded by the green screens, the camera rigs, the chaos, and thinking, this is it. This is what I've been wanting to do for a very long time, and I'm finally here. I didn't know anything yet, but I knew I was finally in the right place. I felt like, okay, I found my tribe. I found my home, right? And then after almost 3 years working on Spartacus, principal photography wrapped. Like all good things, this incredible ride had to come to an end. But what I gained out of it, the hands-on experience, the confidence, the friendships, the lessons, those became the foundation of everything that came next. Does anybody have any questions instead? No? Can I move forward? Yeah. After Spartacus, I spent about 8 months working as a matte painter across various studios in New Zealand. It was the first time I really felt like I was gaining some momentum. Work was finally starting to pick up. I didn't feel like I had to beg for a job anymore. It's just like once you have that experience, the first experience, you start applying for jobs, it gets much easier. So that was the moment I felt like maybe I could make it. So after the stint, I took the another leap of faith across the pond to Australia and joined Rising Sun Pictures in Adelaide. And I spent 6 months there working as a matte painter on films like The Great Gatsby, The Wolverine, I, Frankenstein, and The Incredible Bird Wonderstone. While in Australia wrapping up my contract, I received an email from a recruiter from Moving Picture Company, or better known as MPC, to take on a contract for a few months in Canada. And I thought, why not? You know, I like Canada and I love skiing, so let's do it. You know, I was young then, right? So I took an even bigger leap across the Pacific Ocean and landed in Vancouver, Canada back in 2013, 12 years ago now. And for 10 months, I work on these films, these projects. After MPC, I spent 6 months working for Zoic Studios and Image Engine on back-to-back contracts and work on these films. I think one of the highlights for this was Jurassic World and Game of Thrones, because I love Jurassic World and I like Jurassic Park and I love dinosaurs when I was a kid. So that was kind of like, I told my parents, I'm finally working on Jurassic World. And they were kind of proud, at least I hope. And after my time at Zoic and Image Engine, I began the next chapter of my career at Sony Pictures ImageWorks. There, I work as a senior matte painter and environment TD on projects like Ghostbusters, Kingsman, Alice Through the Looking Glass, and Smurfs: The Lost Village. And then I was later promoted to a lead matte painter and environment TD on Lucky 13, part of Netflix Love, Death, and Robot anthology. And this opened the doors to more stylized and high profile projects like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Right? A few years later, after Mulan, I got promoted to supervisor and work on shows like Mitchell's vs. the Machines, Hotel Transylvania, Transformania, and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. This was a huge, big shift for me, from focusing on shot creation now to managing people, helping others to grow, and shaping the look of the entire sequences. It was actually, it's a shift, right? You're no longer an artist, but you're responsible for people and responsible for the look of the sequence that you work on. And in 2021, I was accepted into Epic Games' Unreal Fellowship for virtual production to make a short film in 5 weeks using a software I had zero experience with. 5 weeks of intensive training, you know, to write a story, to come up with storyboards, previs, animatics, building environments, texturings, and animating that I know nothing about, by the way, effects, lighting, and compositing. It was literally a sink or swim situation for me, as we had to showcase our films to the public no matter what, whether you finish or not. Adding the pressures and stress to do a very good job, because everyone in my company was watching, you know, they had higher expectations. So I had absolutely no idea how I managed to pull it off, but I did, especially with very, very little sleep. So I created this short called Vida. It's basically an abandoned robot in a desert island, uninhabitable planet, because people destroyed it. So he stayed behind and basically revived the planet. So this is the story. So this experience reminded me that being a filmmaker today means constantly learning and evolving with new technology, right? And after the fellowship and upon my return to Sony Pictures ImageWorks, I work on Ant-Man Quantumania in the virtual production pipeline, and 2 other untitled shows by Netflix and Marvel. Oh, there's a question here. What is your approach to jumping between different heads, like from visual effects, animation, matte painting? Do you use courses or something? A lot of the skills I actually learned from the job. You know, I was very lucky enough that I got put on visual effects shows and then animation shows, so I could actually go back and forth. But a lot of the skills I learned, basically currently what I have, I learned from the job. From every show is very different, right? So the tools that you learn to make a certain product, or you know, what you need to do, and also the style as well. Every show is different. Obviously, live action, you need to be quite photorealistic. Everything you do needs to be believable, right? That's mostly comes from texturing, lighting, but also as a matte painter, you need to know where to source your reference images from that matches the lighting condition, for example. For animation, it's more stylized. So you're working with a whole bunch of very talented artists. It has an art department. They come up with like concept, come up with color keys, and those basically are your Bible to help you guide the style for the animation. So my approach to jump is like basically it's, I would say, depends on the studio you worked. You know, sometimes you can be lucky that your studio is doing both visual effects and animation, and you get the chance to work both. And if not, then I would say perhaps apply for a studio that specializes in visual effects and work there for a couple of years, and then try animation. You know, and then that's how you build your experience and build your repertoire, I guess. I hope that helped. Right. So what next? So I went back to Sony after virtual production, and what next? And honestly, until today, I'm still figuring it out, but that's part of the adventure. After spending over a decade building environments and stories for others, I started to wonder, what environment was I building for myself, and what stories do I still want to tell, right? I realized it was time to take a leap, not because I was unhappy, but because I needed to grow. And so I asked myself the hardest question of all: what's next? So after a decade at Sony, it was with a very, very heavy heart that I left what has grown to be a very familiar and significant part of my life. I never imagined that when I started working at ImageWorks, which was supposed to be a few months contract, by the way, I would ended up making so many friends. It is true that they say, you know, people make the plays, and I was really lucky to be part of a team that celebrated not just the wins, but also the hard days, the late nights, the quiet moments of doubt, and still kept going. But even in comfort, I knew something was stirring inside me. I realized, as I mentioned, although I was happy where I was, I needed to grow, to make the next leap of faith, to progress in my career so that I can help others find success and happiness. I realized that staying comfortable was no longer enough for me. I needed to keep growing. And it's no longer about chasing the titles or the credits or the projects anymore. If I could help others along the way find their voice, find their joy, find their creative path, and then maybe it's time for me to leap again, right? Progress is impossible without change. Now, this quote really hit me during a period of reflection, especially during the time when I decided whether to leave Sony or not. After nearly a decade at Sony, as I was growing comfortable, I also knew that comfort wasn't the same as growth. Leaving a company you love, a team you admire, and a role that feels like second nature to you is not an easy choice. But I've always believed that if I want to do more, be more, or give more, I need to make some move. I need to make some change, even if it is uncomfortable. And progress doesn't come with staying still. It comes from taking the next step, even when the path is unknown, you know, for you. So after leaving Sony, I joined Bello Effects as a visual effects art director, returning to my roots in the art department, but this time with years of experience and a new perspective with virtual production and team building. My focus shifted from just creating shots to shaping how the stories are told, both visually and culturally. I was fortunate enough to contribute to shows like The Acolyte, The Last of Us, Fast 8, Mission Impossible. And then, like many of you may have heard, the strikes hit. It was a hard time for the industry, right? Face it. It was really heart-wrenching. You know, many of my talented friends and colleagues were laid off, and the industry felt very scary and uncertain at that moment. That pause made me reflect again, what my role in all of this, you know, what's my role in all of this? And what do I really want to give to this industry moving forward? So I made another choice. This time I left this role, this time not because of the strike, and this time because I wanted to lean into what I do best: building teams, empowering others, and creating space for new voices to rise. So I left. And a friend of mine reached out and told me about an opportunity at Squeeze Animation Studio in Montreal, We started talking, and a few weeks later, I was brought on board to establish the environment and map painting department from ground up. My job was to build the pipeline, to define the workflows, and to get the team production ready for Squeeze Animation's first full feature-length animation with over 1,000 CG shots. It was a huge undertaking, but I loved the challenge. And this is where my background in computer engineering and science really came into play. I was able to develop internal tools that help automate repetitive tasks, streamline the workflows, and reduce bottlenecks, things that made a difference for both the artists and the production. And that was around this time as well, I started to realize the dots were finally starting to connect. Remember? Like, because you have all the dots scattered all over the place, but you're unsure where they connect. Now I finally see they're starting to connect. So after all the years I spent, working in art and technology, bouncing between departments, learning the business side of production, and all of it prepared me for moments like this. Once everything was in place and the team was solid and running smoothly, I knew it was time to pass the torch on and continue my journey elsewhere to explore what's next, right? And when words got out that I was rapping at Squeeze Animation Studios, a contact from Atomic Cartoons reached out, and that's how I ended up here. At Atomic Cartoons, I continued the work I love most, building the next generation pipeline and workflow for the DMP and environment department from the ground up. This time, I was even more intentional, not just building the tools or streamline the production, but also designing them to improve the artist's experience, the tools that reduce frictions, the tools that feels intuitive, the tools that are artist friendly. A lot of times when you work in a studio or you learn the new software, those tools are very difficult to grasp. So my new focus, my new obsession now is to make tools that are artist friendly, that makes sense for artists. And that really free up people's focus from all the manual, boring technical things and let them focus on the creative side of the art. So about 5 years ago, I got involved in mentoring, and honestly, I wasn't sure what to expect. But I realized very quickly that I really enjoyed teaching and I loved helping people find their path. So since then, I've continued mentoring through community outreach programs. I've worked with aspiring artists from the lower income and the underrepresented communities, because for me, this industry should be accessible to all, regardless of gender, race, beliefs, social status, or where you come from. And over the time, something shifted. I started seeing my role differently. I know that I wanted to go beyond just creating beautiful images for film and animation. I want to help create opportunity. I want to build teams. I want to share knowledge, and I want to help the next generation of artists find their way, especially those who, like me, never imagined they belong in this industry. Not just about what I make anymore. This time is not about that. This time is about who I can bring with me, right? So it's a whole mental shift happening right there. So my partner and I founded the VFX Mentor end of 2019, and the VFX Mentor was born from a very simple idea: to help people tell stories that matter, especially those who have never had the chance, like me. Our mission is to provide equitable pathway for aspiring artists and filmmakers, and we believe that stories have power, especially the ones that hadn't been heard yet. We offer mentorship, training, and support for those who may not have access to industry standard tools, resources, or networks, by empowering them to bring the stories to life in their own voice. Through the global partnerships and community initiatives where we advocate for diversity, belonging, and fostering a space where creativity thrives and diverse stories have the opportunity to shine. These are just some of the snapshots of the work we do at the VFX Mentor. We empowering communities through engagement. And then I also became a mentor for Women in Animation, a global nonprofit committed to build a more inclusive animation industry. Through mentorship, our partnerships with organizations like Latinx in Animation, Rise Up Animation, Black and Animated, and Animations, we work together towards one shared goal: an industry where everyone, regardless of gender identity, has equal opportunity to participate, lead, and to be heard. And driven by my passion for environment building and the deep commitment for mentorship, I spent a few years guiding these mentees through Women in Animation's mentorship program, especially through the two tailored tracks. Part one is focused on environment and map painting for entertainment industry, where they learn about the history, techniques, the historical techniques, emerging trends, and giving them the foundation and future forward thinking needed for today's creative industry. And part two is more on leadership and mentoring, where they learn how to build inclusive teams, learn how to lead with empathy, and show them how to lift others as we grow. I've been incredibly honored to witness the transformation of so many brilliant women, non-binary and gender diverse individuals, many of whom had gone on to lead their own teams or inspire others. And it's a very strong reminder that community and shared growth are just as powerful as individual talent, right? So I was invited to join IM4 Lab in partnership with Emily Carr University of Art and Design to mentor and help develop the world's first Indigenous-led micro-credential for Canadian Indigenous film professionals and upcoming filmmakers in virtual production storytelling. At its core, IM4 Lab is indigenizing technology, building an ecosystem and providing opportunities for Indigenous storytellers, artists, creators to contribute and participate in a rapidly growing multi-billion-dollar virtual production industry in Canada. With the help of sponsors like the Western Economic Diversification Canada Congress of Aboriginal Peoples and Creative BC, IM4 Lab is able to provide this training as an awards program to ensure that successful candidates receive these programs free of cost. And IM4 Lab is committed to ensure Indigenous artists have the knowledge and tools for innovative storytelling through an Indigenous lens. Our goal is to increase the capacity of Indigenous filmmakers in the workforce and foster their own economic growth through professional development opportunities. And then I joined Spark Computer Graphics Society and ACM SIGGRAPH as a chairperson in 2021. As a chairperson, I work with other chairpeople in the leadership committee, organizing and hosting events that celebrate creativity, inspire innovation, and bring our community together. We are also committed to bringing the local and international professional communities together through our two events, which is Spark FX and Spark Animation. So look out. A few weeks ago, I stood here on the lawn at MIT in Cambridge, Massachusetts, nervous, excited, and wondering if I really belong here. You can see how nervous I was on my face. After years of building worlds on screen, leading teams, and giving back through mentorship, I felt something shifted yet again. I realized that if I truly want to make a bigger impact, not just for work or in the work, but in the way we work, who we work with, and why we do what we do, then I needed to grow in a different way. So I took another leap of faith, and this time I went back to school to study business administration at MIT. I chose MIT for what it stands for: leadership, innovation, entrepreneurship, technology, and a deep belief in changing the world for better. We have all seen how fast things are changing, the new technologies, new challenges, new expectations. But what doesn't change is the need for strong, principled leaders, people who put others first, people who understand that success isn't just about delivering results. It is about lifting others, shaping cultures, and telling stories that really matter. That's why I'm here, to learn, to listen, and to learn to lead differently. I don't want to walk this journey alone. My hope is that what I've learned here, I can bring back, not just for the studio or the companies I work for, but to the community, to the next generation of artists, leaders, and storytellers. It is a beautiful thing when a career and passion come together. Allow your passion to become your purpose. It will guide you. It will one day become your profession. And that has been the case for me. As artists, we see the impossibilities we see the possibilities in impossible, right? What I once thought was impossible, leaving a job, changing countries, switching careers, was really just a series of small steps, each uncomfortable, each one a little scary, but each one is necessary. Quitting my programming job, then at Saatchi & Saatchi International, those weren't easy choices, but they were defining moments. Along the way, I picked up the skills I didn't know I needed. Like from hospitality, I learned how to listen, how to connect with people. From advertising, I learned how to manage risk. I learned how to read clients. I learned how to trust my creative instincts. And little by little, the impossible became a path. The path became a career, and the career turned into a calling. Why I'm sharing this? Because we overlook the power of our own stories sometimes. We forget what shapes us. We forget that our families, our setbacks, our odd jobs, our culture, our curiosity, these are the things that give us our edge. These are the things that make us different and interesting. You know, we always compare ourselves with others, right? Like, how come so and so get ahead while I'm still here? We start at the same place. People have their own story. You have your own story. I have my own stories. We all walk a different path, right? There's no identical path there. So for me, it was like this. For me, it was the structure and the logic that I inherited from my father, the creative passion absorbed from my mother, and a childhood filled with solitude and imagination. That's what it gave me, you know, what I have now. You know, gave me a way to seeing things and thinking about things that I can carry with me even until today. So if you're holding on to a dream, don't wait for permission. Take the leap, make the change. It will be hard, it will be messy, but it will be yours. And maybe, just maybe, what seems impossible today is exactly what will define you tomorrow, right? When I look at this slide, I don't just see movie posters. I see memories, long nights, impossible deadlines, first wins, quiet failures, and teammates who became friends. It's been over 20 years since I first stepped into the world of visual effects and animation. And even now, I still feel like a student, learning every single day. There's always something to learn. I started with nothing more than a dream, no fancy connection, no clear path, just curiosity, a love for storytelling, and a lot of late nights. And honestly, I didn't even think I belonged in this industry. But here's what I've learned. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just need to take one step at a time, one step forward, then another, and then another. Eventually, those steps become your path. And if someone like me, a quiet kid from a small town with more questions than answers, who didn't speak a word of English, can make it, so can you. And if there's one thing I hope this slide says to you, it's not look what I've done. It's more like look what's possible. This could be you, right? Now, this guy didn't win an Oscar until he was 70 years old and starred in 38 movies. He made kaiju history last year for winning the Best Visual Effects Oscar. So never stop following your dreams. It takes time. And I'm going to end my presentation here with a quote from the late Steve Jobs. Your work is going to fill a large part of your life. And the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking. Thank you. Thank you. I hope it's not too boring. Do we have any questions?
It's extremely inspiring. You have a few questions. The first one that hasn't been answered is from Howard Chen. You see that one?
Hang on. Am I going from the top or from the bottom?
It's up to you. Up to you. This is the last one that's not been answered.
Oh, the last one. Okay. Let's see.
There's three of them.
Oh, okay. Hi, I'm interested in concept work, leaning more towards animation and games. I only really have 2D experience. Do you have any recommendation how to get into 3D works? Are you currently working in the industry or you're just interested in concept work? Oh, they can't talk, right?
They can hear if they want to. They replied though.
Okay, yeah. Oh, you're a student. Okay, great. So if you're a student, if you're still studying, I would recommend you to start learning about the games pipeline if you want to become a concept artist in games, for example. Animation is different. Concept work for animation is more like a visual development. So I would write it down. The visual development is more like the concept work for animation, and concept work is basically for games. You may need to learn some 3D tools. That depends. I would say research your favorite games company that you would like to work for one day, and then get in touch with some of the concept artists there and see, what they actually doing, what tools they use, and hopefully that will guide you. Every studio has a very different ways of working. They have different, say, proprietary tools, but I would imagine concept is pretty standard. So you may need to learn some 3D. You may need to learn a particular style, that follows the game company's aesthetic. So those are the things that I can recommend you to look into. There are many short courses as well. Like, for example, if you want to do concept art for games, I believe there's some short courses out there. You can take a look at it. But yeah, if you're still a student right now, I would ask your faculty to see if there's anything that you could actually potentially learn as well. Hopefully that answers your question. Anybody else? Love every part of your journey and inspiring. Oh, hang on. Okay, so which are the most common industry standard software used in visual effects and 3D animation? As a beginner, where should I start? So most studios are using Nuke, Maya, and Houdini. So those are the three major software you use. If you're a map painter or concept artist, then you have to include as well Photoshop. But I would say a lot of bigger companies like Weta, FX, ILM, or Sony, they have their own proprietary software. So they have their own tools. So learning the basics from, say, Maya, Houdini, Nuke, and Photoshop would get you far. Anything else? I wanted to ask how many rejections did you have to face before finally getting into animation and visual effects industry? Selena, I can tell you a lot of rejections. This is something that a lot of people don't talk about more, and I wish that people would talk about a lot more. For me, I had about 75 rejection letters before I got my first one. I remember 75 rejection letter before I got the first interview. Now I apply everywhere. I applied both Australia, New Zealand, local shops, advertising studios, every freelance gig I could think of. I applied, but I still got like 75 rejection letter before somebody actually took me on. And do we have another one? Oh my God.
I can help if you like. I can read one
Oh
out.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
I keep reading it, just keep bumping up. So like,
yeah. So Orlando asked, is remote work a real option for working on VFX other roles? Is it 100% necessary to live in the productions country? Wondering because I'm from Latin.
Okay, so basically production work depending on the studio. So if you have international branches, for example, I can speak for Atomic Cartoons. We have three branches, one Vancouver, Los Angeles, and Ottawa. We do have to be in the geographical location of these studios to be hired. It's because of the tax credit as well. Because of government tax credit, we are required to be in the country, in the province. Some studios who are more international, for example, DNEC or ILM, they have different branches in different countries. So you could potentially apply, if you want to go to those countries and work there. Smaller shops, for example, there are many like hybrid studios out there. Like, for example, Bello FX is one of the studios that are fully hybrid. And I work from home all the time. And so does a lot of people. So that, it really depends on the size of the studio. I think a lot of the bigger studios, because of the NDA projects as well, like from high profile clients, they rather you actually work from the office than from home. So it depends on many factors, like the size of the company, like their policies as well. Atomic Cartoons is an open policy, so we can remote, hybrid, or work from the office. So usually if you read the contract or the job description, they already tell you if this is a remote possibility or hybrid possibility, or you have to be on site, right? So yeah, that's all I can say.
Cool. One from Nico. I don't think you answered this one. I noticed that you worked on the second Spider-Verse film. What was it like working for a film that was basically 7 different films, art direction wise, in one?
Oh, I can't really say too much about that because of NDA, but I can tell you that it was incredibly fun. It was incredibly challenging because, you know, when we started working on the film, a lot of the style was still being, you know, developed. So it's the constant change, the constant move that keeps me engaged. That's all I can say. It's very, very challenging, but fun at the same time because you're trying to create something different. You're trying to create something new that no one has seen before. So what does it look like, you know? So,
yeah. Cool. Thank you. Another one from Ragesh. Which is the most common industry standard softwares used in VFX and 3D animations? And as a beginner, where shall I start?
For start, so I would say if you are not a map painter or someone who paints, then I would focus on Nuke, a 3D software like Maya and Houdini. Those are the standard one I recommend a lot of my students use to try to learn these days.
Cool, thank you. Another one from Aditi. I'm sorry if I butchered your names. My question is, as an artist, how do you keep your creative flow with so many ideas when it comes to working on so many different genres?
Go for walks, go for hikes. You know, I found inspirations in actually people. You know, that's why I love talking to people from different countries, because I just find it very fascinating to learn about different cultures and languages. So I find a lot of inspiration through there, through my connections. But I'm a daydreamer. I like to walk, like go on hikes and just look at skies, look at the trees, you know, look at how the light interact with things. Those are your free education, really, that trains your eye to be more critical, to pay more attention to details. So I would say go for a lot of walks.
Oh, I like that.
I have my best ideas when I'm relaxing, doing chores, like washing dishes, having shower.
You're like kind of taking your mind off of...
Just kind of taking your mind off.
Yeah, okay. That's cool.
Hey, yeah, I think one day I was taking the garbage to the trash room and I had this brilliant idea, just rushing over.
Another question from Hunter. As someone who is trying to break in the VFX industry, what is your advice to landing the first job? Seeing as entry-level jobs expect 2 to 3 years of a professional experience, is it possible to land a position without a degree?
It is possible. I have seen a lot of people landed a job without a degree or diploma, you know. I think it's just you need to connect, you need to network. And that's one thing that I ran out of time to talk about is how important networking is. You know, find the local visual effects and animation community. If they have festivals or events, I would say go and make yourself known. Talk to recruiters, talk to people, connect with the people. For example, LinkedIn used to be, I mean, I'm still on LinkedIn. LinkedIn used to be a very good tool, you know, to connect with people because, for example, if you like a certain work from someone, right, you email the recruiter and say, hey, I would love to connect with someone, you know, in the studio and learn about it. And who knows, this person might end up becoming your mentor, right? And the other thing I want to, which leads to mentorship as well, which is why I kind of want to leave the traditional studio environment and start my own mentoring programs, is because I want to create opportunities for people like yourself, me, you know, who finds it very hard to get connected or get into the industry. A, maybe because of geographical location, or B, because of resources, you know, it could be many factors. And we try to bridge that gap so that it becomes more equitable for everyone, regardless of status, right? So I would say connect, you know, try to mentor, try to find a mentor. Again, mentor is not something that you can force. It has to be mutual. You have to feel the same vibes with your mentor. If you get matched with the wrong mentor, your life is not going to work out well. You're not going to have a good time. If you match with a good mentor, it will stay with you for the rest of your life. Pretty much like my mentor that I still stay connected, right? So after all these years. So I would say find a mentor, network, go to events and make yourself known. And on top of that, I would say keep learning. If you want to, progress in your skill, keep learning. There's so many resources out there on YouTube, right? They're free. If you're actually under financial difficulty, YouTube is free. There are many sources where you can find free tutorials and learn those things. Even if you want to learn Blender, they have a good training documentation online that you can actually access and learn from it. So yeah, don't give up.
Cool.
Hopefully that helped.
Yeah. Someone else had a very similar question, so I will skip that one, but I think it was also to do with advice on landing their first job. So yeah, thank you. That's really helpful. Another one from, I'm really sorry, I'm not going to be able to pronounce that. My ultimate goal is to work in live action film as a 3D artist, but as soon to be fresh grad, there seems to be more opportunities in the gaming industry than the film industry. Do you think that taking jobs in the gaming industry might push me further away from the path of film?
Not necessarily. I mean, look at me. I did many different odd jobs to get where I wanted to go. So if the job opportunity presents to you in the game studio, that is still an experience. You never know where that experience is going to lead you, right? If you ultimately want to make film in the future, have that as your goal. Put it on a Post-it note and stick it in front of your monitor, saying that one day ahead, one day at a time, one step, I'm one step forward, two steps forward. Just remind you that having a first job in this industry is not to make you feel kind of better. It's your learning ground. Basically, it's like your kindergarten, right? So you're learning all the skills. You're learning to network with people. You're learning to communicate. Working in a team, you have to learn to communicate well. So I would think of it this way. Even if you work in the game industry, learn it. Just take it as an opportunity. I think it's important. If you get in there and learn a skill, that's one skill added to your resume. So yeah. But if you really want to try to work in visual effects, I think the other way you can do is try some internship programs. Like a lot of studios like DNEG, ILM, Sony, they provide internship programs. You could apply through there as well. But then I can tell you that the competition is also very high. So that you get like thousands of people applying for it. So
yeah, I kind of interpreted from your talk, just based on like how you got into the industry, is that any experience is good and even adjacent like professional experience can even like enlighten you to see where you want to go. You might not necessarily know, exactly kind of what you might learn there.
So everything that I've been through, like even working in a cafe, working in, I don't know, like programming, right? In a games company as a programmer, those skills are something that I still carry with me. Like I mentioned, I was a shy, introverted girl. Working in the cafe forced me to talk to people, forced me to learn communication skills. Working in advertising has nothing to do with visual effects or animation. That forced me to learn how to risk manage and how to deal with clients of all sorts, good clients, bad clients, those are relationship building. So those skills carry with me even more so as I become, as I got involved in the leadership roles, and those are the skills that stays with you. You never lose them, I would say. So yeah, yes, you need to learn how to make coffee. You're kind of like a therapist too, because you're talking to the regular all the time. So you're building that communication skills. So yeah.
Cool. Ragesh asks, what's the most fun project you've worked on so far?
What's the most fun project I've worked on so far? Wow, I have so many projects. What is that? I'm just gonna go back and have a look at this project. I don't remember on the top of my head, but you know what? I'm gonna go with the cheesy one, HT4, Hotel Transylvania 4. I had fun working on that because we had a lot of creative freedom and we get to design the Amazon rainforest. And for me, that was actually really fun because we had no assets. So we had to create everything from scratch. And we did a lot of research. So that, my art department skills, it came in handy again, doing all the research, where to find the resources and guiding the team to build an Amazon forest. That was a lot of assets, but it was tough. It was challenging. But at the same time, it was really fun. I really like it. A lot of people might ask me, why not Spider-Verse or Mitchell's versus the Machines, right? But they are kind of my fun project too. But I think for the reward case, for the amount of decision I could make on the show, HT4, Hotel Transylvania 4 was my favorite. Hope that didn't disappoint you guys.
Oh, I love that film actually.
Yeah.
Sorry. Hunter asks, I'm currently learning Houdini and Nuke on my own to become a 3D environment generalist, but lack of professional industry experience. Are there things I can do to make my portfolio more appealing to recruiters despite my lack of degree and industry experience?
I would say if you want to render something, if you want to make something like a personal project, make sure that the project looks tight. Like I've hired people with one artwork before because one artwork, 3-second reel, basically. And because this person spends so much time perfecting this piece of artwork, this piece of render, that I basically said, like, wow, okay, if he spends so much time on this, I can imagine what sort of artist he would be. Like the attention to details were amazing. So if you come to a point where you have a product, I would say show it to your friends. Show it to if you have a mentor, show it to your mentor. Show it to your peers, the people that you learn with, and take feedback. Obviously, taking feedback is the hardest thing to learn sometimes because I was all young ones and I had a huge ego. Like being young with the ego is not a good combination. I learned it very, very quickly. So I learned how to grow thick skin and take a lot of constructive feedback and learn how to perfect my art. So I would say this, try to focus on a project that you really believe in, that you can sell, and try to pay more attention to the details and making sure that it looks amazing before you apply. And if you don't have a mentor, you can start looking for one and go from there, So
Would you say that, because obviously no one will know how long you've spent on that portfolio project when you're doing a portfolio, so that's not necessarily something that you need to worry about. So would you say that spending so much time, like you said, you hired someone, did one project, and there was so much detail, kind of shows you like the extent of what they can achieve, and that's better than having like a lot of projects. Is that?
Exactly. I mean, if
Yeah.
you have mediocre portfolio, right? You have like 200 pieces of art in your mediocre portfolio. I mean, why would I want to do this? If you choose to sell your mediocre product, you won't get buyers, basically. You have to be very, I wouldn't say specialized, particular what you showcase, because that's you, that's your lifeline, that's your career, right, on the line. So if you don't feel proud of it, don't show it. I always tell people that, even my artists, like showing me the portfolio, whether they should put this or not. I was like, I can't be the person answer that question. You are the one that have to sell it to me in the interview. You are the one that has to talk about the shot. It doesn't matter if it looks good or bad. If you can talk me through your shots, then you are kind of selling yourself to me. That's a bigger win. And attitude is everything too. If you walk into an interview, let's say with one piece of artwork, and you have this massive ego, you won't get the job either. You have to basically show to the hiring supervisor or the recruiter that you are keen to learn, you are keen to progress. Even though you have one piece of work, you spend a lot of time on it, you perfected it, you're very happy with it, you manage to sell it, and if they see that you have a good attitude, that you want to learn, I think your foot is already in the door that way. So
Okay, yeah, cool. That's great. I think that's really good advice. Thank you.
all right.
I'm just starting out in the industry. Oh, sorry, this is from Aris. I'm just starting out in the industry and I'm really excited to grow. Do you have any advice on how to connect with senior professionals in a respectful and meaningful way, especially when looking to learn from their experience?
If you're working in a team, I think start talking to the senior artists, and from there you can actually talk to the lead. Like if there's any particular things that you don't understand and you want to learn, I actually encourage all my junior artists to pair with the senior artists so that whenever they have questions, the senior artist is not that far off, not far away from them. Asking a supervisor can be quite tricky because I can tell you that supervisors don't have time because we are constantly running from meeting to meeting. The next best person to help you would be your lead. The lead is basically more technical, so they can actually help solve a lot of technical issues for you. So I would say try to get on the good side with your senior artists or your leads, and show them that you want to learn, show them that you are capable of taking on a more challenging shot so that you can learn. It's all about communication. If you don't ask for what you want, you will never get it. That's just the industry, right? That's just in any industry. Like if you want something, you have to negotiate and you have to ask for it.
Arnaldo asks, is there some AI related software you would recommend giving a look or to use for your work?
AI thing is it's a controversial subject right now. I mean, I personally think AI does have a place in filmmaking, but not yet. I think AI is good for budgeting, is good for all the administrative work, forecasting, but I haven't found an AI model that that is more ethical in a way, like that doesn't steal other people's work, um, to learn from other people's work. So it is a topic that I'm a bit reluctant to say publicly right now, before diving into it too much, like before learning about the ethics of it or the copyright law. I would say this, like all the artwork that I do is basically my own work. I don't use AI. But then I've heard people using AI to generate ideas, not necessarily using the ideas as their own, but using it as brainstorm ideas, and then they develop from there. So you could potentially look into that, but don't quote me, because there's still a lot of loopholes going around that. And myself as an artist, obviously, I want to protect the interests of my people, like all my artists, my fellow artists. But at the same time, that I also realize that the technology is moving forward. AI is becoming better with each day. So now it's just the situation whether the government's going to step in to talk about these copyright laws, what is ethical, what is not ethical, that kind of thing. And it's a global issue too, right? So you're not training from materials from artists in your country, you're training from the materials of people from other countries as well. So now it becomes an international relations issue. So there's a lot to dive into it. The AI topic itself, I could go on for 4 hours. But I don't want to bore you with it. So I would say this, with the AI program, use it with your own, at your own discretion. And I would say if it is too much in line, too similar to other people's, another artist's look, I wouldn't use it, basically. Yeah. Hopefully that helps.
Do you even recommend them kind of using it? Because would it that necessarily help an absolute beginner at this stage? Or maybe it's like a kind of later on thing?
I really don't want to get into it too much because obviously I have a lot of connection with other companies as well. And the best way is just I can give you is use at your own discretion and learn about these tools, like where they develop it, what sources they use, how do they train their models, right? I would say, of everything that I've seen so far, apparently there's you could train your own artwork, you can build your own machine learning model, you can build that. Comfy UI is one that has been floating around for a long time. And you could actually work with Houdini too. Well, Comfy UI and Houdini could be a package too. So those are still under a lot of development. I'm still learning a lot about them. So I cannot really give you advice with something that I'm still learning. So okay. I hope that helps.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Ragesh asks, I'm trying to pursue a career in gaming industry, and then I saw you have work on Starfield. So how did that happen, and can you give me a tips and advice, please?
That is mainly, it's just like a concept work, like really early concept work. So it's not really in-game kind of work. So it's mostly concept for the clients. So my work involved in that is very minimal, let's just say.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Ella asks, I remember you said you worked with Unreal and virtual production briefly. I'm interested in doing VFX work for animated films and was wondering if you feel virtual production is useful within animation pipelines or if it's really only for live action in game.
No, you can use it in animation as well. I've seen a lot of animation coming out of Unreal, that's for sure. But then if you work at the studio, that really is depending on the studio's pipeline, I would say. Yeah, that depends. Like some studios have an Unreal pipeline and some are still working on it. I think most cases is I've seen is like a lot of visual effects studios do have the Unreal pipeline now, so they could actually work on that. Animation's no difference, it's just a different look. Unfortunately, I haven't seen a lot of Unreal pipeline in animation studios just yet. I think mainly used by previs or layout department, not so much of a shot finishing or assets.
Well, thank you. Hunter asks, given that mentorships can play a pivotal role in a young artist's career, how would you suggest finding a mentor that is right for the career path I'd like to pursue? In this case, VFX. Is your mentorship available?
Send me an email and we can talk. Because I usually try to match mentor closest to your skill set, right? Closest to what you try to achieve. For example, if you really want to do visual effects heavy shows, then I match with a mentor that specializes in visual effects. I won't match you with somebody who works in games or animation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it does take time to find the right person and try to understand you as well. It's almost like, it's almost like you're dating, right? You're trying to figure out each party before to see if it works. So if you think about that way, so just give us some time. So if you are looking for a mentor and see if the VFX mentor can help you, please send me an email and I'll look into it, to see what you want and see how we can help each other if possible, so.
Oh, is there an email I could provide or maybe you could write it in here?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, cool.
I'll send you my email. Or you can connect with me on LinkedIn as well. If you don't, yeah. So that's my email, alyssa@thevfxmentor.com.
Thank you. I'm just going to put your LinkedIn quickly here as well. I have it here. There you go.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. A few more. Arnaldo says, any book recommendations?
Any book recommendation? What sort of books?
Learning. I assume. I don't know, maybe they'll reply.
Like visual effects, animation, Unreal, side effects.
Why don't we start with ones that you like and love?
Books. I have also the art book behind me, but I generally don't buy books these days because technology changes so quickly. It's just within 6 months, it's just out of date, right? So I will tell you this. Is it Arnaldo? Yeah, Arnaldo, I'll tell you this. Keep track on all the software's blogs because when they update something, they always, make a video or blog. So those are the best way to get updated, I would say. Like, for example, Unreal, they have this new updates. They have training documentations. Everything on their website is basically updated. So I would say just if you want to learn Nuke, for example, go to the Foundry's page and go to the training documents and learn from there. I would say save your money, don't buy books, unless it's the soft skills books, like learn how to communicate, learn how to negotiate, then buy those books. But software books, don't buy it. It's just going to be a waste of money.
That makes sense. Joanne asks, there are tons of VFX tutorials on YouTube. Do you have any channels or websites you'd recommend to explore and build a solid learning path?
So YouTube tutorials for VFX, tutorials on YouTube. I like to give some out. I can't think of it on the top of my head. So if you can write to me, then I could potentially send you a list. But on the top of my head, I think Schoolism is one of the subscription-based website that you could potentially learn a lot of the foundation skills. If you want to learn, for example, Nuke or effects, then I believe Rebel Way, they kind of have some sort of program happening, or Action VFX, they have some sort of comp tutorials happening. That really is depending on what sort of, what role that you're trying to get into. For the VFX Mentor, we also have a free blog, basically teaching you of some of the common tools in Houdini, so everybody can jump on it and take a peek, learn from there. So yeah, VFX tutorials on YouTube. I can't think of it. Hugo Des, maybe, you can actually look at that. He's like one of the earlier YouTube visual effects artist, tutorial provider. And what else on YouTube? Effects PhD. I'm not sure if they still have a YouTube channel. This is how much I watch YouTube, by the way. So.
Oh, cool. Thank you. I'm just going to keep it to one more question, if that's okay, because we're half past the hour.
Yeah.
Would you recommend learning Python when getting into technical VFX and simulations?
For sure. Yes, learn it. I would say that will become very, very handy to you.
Nice. That's easy. Nice.
I use Python every day too when developing tools for the team. So you could actually end up becoming a technical director who develop tools for your team. So.
That is really interesting that you do that. Is that kind of something that you've taken initiative to do for your team, and it's not something necessarily they were looking for?
Yes. The thing is, as I progress in my career, I just realized that there's ways we could actually make it more artist friendly. A lot of the tools is very confusing and very technical. And I decided to, ever since I left Sony, I decided I want to help companies. I want to help startup, to build a intuitive, like state-of-the-art kind of like workflow and pipeline. And that's when I dive into it. Ever since I started Squeeze Animation, I decided, I could do a lot more than just painting. So I could make my life much easier. So originally it was started with me because I had so many things happening. So I just needed a tool that could help my life, like cut down some of the manual work. So I've been doing that. And I realized that, what? This could be beneficial for all the artists. We can cut production time. We can provide efficiency. There's less mistakes being made if tools were automated. So I started looking into it. And at Atomic, basically everything that the department, DMP, and environments do, we have a set of tools just for them so that they don't have to go through the system, click so many buttons looking for it. So a lot of the stuff is being automated right now, which is kind of nice. It's flowing, so it's good.
That makes you so valuable.
No, like I said, everything comes, together. The dots starts to join together, because when I was studying computer engineering, I didn't see how that would fit into like my dream, right, working into film, but it finally did, and it's kind of like a full circle. So like I said, everything you encounter right now, every experience that you've experienced right now, no matter good or bad, it's gonna end up becoming very important for you, whether you jump into a leadership role further down the line or becoming an art director. Like all those on-set photography that I learned back then on Spartacus came in very, very handy to me right now. So yeah, you never know. Even though the job is unsexy, right? You still have to do it, but you still learn something out of it. Making coffee, teach you how to communicate.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much. You're really inspiring.
Thank you.
I'm in love with just your whole kind of career path and how you've got where you are. I really appreciate that you've detailed it all out for us, and it's nice to see, like you said, something a bit more wavy than just a straight line. And I'm amazed by how many skills you have, quite honestly.
Thank you. No, I wish that more people would talk about this, because we all hear about the fun stories, right? People just go from point A and point B. Suddenly I'm working in the industry. I went to school to industry. But I do know a lot of us, struggled through the first few years of our career. And as long as you keep reminding yourself that this is your dream, this is what makes you happy, this is what gets you off the bed every single day, that you have a purpose, don't give up. Like I have people telling me throughout my career, don't give up. And now I'm telling you, don't give up, So it is doable. It is possible, I would say.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. That was amazing. I put your LinkedIn there for anyone who wants to connect, and then you put your email there if anyone is interested in mentorship. So really cool.
Please connect with me. Like please do connect with me. If you want to ask a question you didn't have a chance to ask, please connect with me, either email or LinkedIn. I'll answer your questions. Today is my day off, so.
Oh, well, thank you for being here on your day off.
Today is my day off, so I will have time to answer your questions.
Oh,